Before I built my bus, there was one thing that I wanted to add inside this bus, and that was a central AC system, and I've never really seen that on a skoolie. So that was a hurdle that I needed to jump over because there wasn't that much research or information online prior to me installing this unit inside of my bus. A lot of people install mini split units inside of their bus, but this unit was a ducted mini split unit. So that means I needed to make sure I had a lot of calculations so that I had the correct amount of airflow and the correct amount of space to push that airflow through all of the ductwork inside of the bus. But with a little help from people on YouTube and friends and family, I tackled that project and the system is up and running very, very good. And I want to go through how I installed it and everything that I planned out to make sure that this unit was going to work. The first thing I needed to do was research and plan out the unit that I was going to buy. And after some research, I found one on Amazon that was a 12K unit, and it was a ducted mini split unit. This mini split unit, although it was ducted, is very similar to a regular mini split unit with just the wall mount. This means that it had the condenser that needed to go outside. And the condenser was just mounted with two brackets that were welded up on the frame of the bus in the back of the bus, right past one of the back wheels. This was an easy location so that I could run the electrical line and then the lines up to the compressor inside of the bus. The indoor unit was mounted to the ceiling in the back of the bus, just using some 1-inch square stock tubing and some brackets and some bolts. It was very easy for myself to just get up and out when I was making the plenum and making some adjustments and measurements. After I bought the unit, the main issue was making the plenum that was going to actually push the air out of the unit. And after some calculations, I made sure that I had the correct amount of airflow coming out of the unit so that I didn't have any problems down the road. When I first bought the unit and installed it, my first idea was making the entire roof a plenum. So we raised the roof and we had an extra couple inches in the roof or the ceiling that we could play with to make sure we had all the airflow running throughout the bus. One of the main issues that I came across after building this plenum in the ceiling was that it wasn't going to have enough air flow or air volume to push out the air through the vents. Also, it was going to lead to some cracks down the road, and it just wasn't the overall best decision for the air circulating out of the mini split system. And after some calculations from friends and people on YouTube, I made a plenum that was going to work coming out of the unit. The plenum was just made from very thin sheet metal, and it had 6 4-inch holes coming out of it, as well as a 4-inch by 8-inch vent underneath the unit that was going to push the air out right in the back bedroom. But the main issue with all this ductwork coming out of the plenum was that it had to go around this vent in the back of the bus. That way, I needed to make sure that I had enough room on both sides of this vent so that I could have 3 4-inch ductwork on both sides. After I knew I had enough room around the vent, I needed to plan out where I wanted all of the ductwork for the vents to go inside of the bus so that I had enough air in the front and the back of the bus so that it wasn't uneven. I did decide to add an extra vent in the bathroom and one more vent where it ducted into the loft above the driver and passenger seat. And for the vent caps, I just used these 4-inch vent caps that I found on Amazon. They were pretty cheap and they do the job very, very well. Running all the ductwork in the ceiling, I didn't really need to insulate the ductwork itself, mostly because the main plenum in the ceiling that I designed before this one was already all insulated from outside elements and outside air. So it was already an insulated unit that all the ductwork could run through. The other issue was making the plenum for the induct air. And this was pretty easy once the unit was mounted in the back of the bus on the wall. I just used that same thin sheet metal that I used for the other plenum for this induct plenum, and I made sure that it mounted up to the wall itself, and I used a 12-inch by 24-inch filter that went on the front of it, as you can see on the back wall right here. Made sure that I taped up and insulated that unit in the back of the bus so that no extra moisture or any hot air or cold air from the garage area of the bus got to the unit. After everything was installed inside the bus and the system was working for a long time, I did have some issues that I thought I was going to get away from, but they kind of came up. And that issue was condensation on all of the ductwork. Now, it wasn't a very thick condensation, but I knew that it was an issue and I needed to take care of it. And that was an easy fix by just basically getting all the air or eliminating all of the air in the system. So around these vents, I made these extensions so no air could get in there from inside the bus. And then in the back of the bus where the unit was, I did have some holes or some areas where outside air, hot, humid air could get into and cause the condensation on the lines. So all I did was close off those areas after insulating them very, very well. And since then, I have had no issues with condensation on any of the lines. When we're running the unit, I never really run the unit on full blast. When the system is starting up, it uses a little bit more power, but once the system is going and it's kind of on a level playing field on the medium fan setting, it's only using between 500 and 700 watts, which I feel like is not that much based off of the battery bank and the solar that I have on the roof. One other hurdle that I came across when I was building this unit is that all of the ducted mini split units run off of 240, not 120. And the inverter that I have, it puts out 120 and not 240. So after doing some extra research, I found online that they make a step up or a step down transformer, and I needed a step up transformer to go from 120 to 240 to run the system. And after a little bit more research on Amazon, I found a unit that was going to work to make sure that I had an ample amount of running watts while the system was working so that I didn't blow any fuses and I had enough power to run the system. All I needed to do was take an outlet, a 120 outlet off the breaker, and then plug in the transformer to it, and then plug in the mini split unit itself into that step up transformer. Again, this is a unit that I bought that I did a lot of research to make sure that it wasn't something that was going to blow, catch on fire, or cause any other issues down the road. That's the whole system up and running, and like I mentioned, it's been running for about 10 months with no issues, except for the condensation. So if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments, and I'll be happy to help you out if you have any concerns if you want to put a system like this inside of your bus. So I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next video.